The Shepherd and the Shrink podcast is brought to you by Red Brick Kitchen and Bar, downtown Main Street, Dexter, Michigan.
Welcome today. My name is Dr. Matt Hook, and I am the Shepherd.
And I'm Dr. Marty Fletcher, and I am the Shrink. I'll give you an example of that. So my sister, when she was 13, she died. So she had leukemia. So at the very end of her life, when she was getting weak and all that kind of stuff. And I'd also see her in a wheelchair staring out the window, and I'd wonder, I wonder what she's doing. You know, I don't know. But she wanted.
How old were you when she?
I was 17. Wow. Right. So I watched her waste away and all that stuff, and it's a sibling and all that kind of stuff. But there's this moment that I remember, and it was very much at the end, you know, when she was emaciated and all that stuff. She wanted a pineapple. And I watched her eat that pineapple, and it looked like pure gratitude. She was so in the moment with that. And at the last thing she decided to exit is you know what, I want to do that again and taste it. Yeah. And it was so good. And I was that's what gratitude looks like.
That is a beautiful image.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss.
So it was a long time ago.
Wow. I think it points out the fact that we think we can have all good, or we think we're in all bad. Well, gratitude, though, you can have gratitude in the midst of one of the darkest seasons of your life.
That's right.
And you can have gratitude, and you can have good in the midst of challenging times or a bad mood. And I think it can lift you out of some of it. I think there's power. I think there's momentum in gratitude itself.
Well, I mean, we talked about all of those things that, you know, here are the things that the research find. We didn't get to all these, right? Improves sleep quality. This is going to sound like a huckster, like a medicine show rolling through town, but there's research.
We got gratitude here.
Trust me, but
$10 a bottle.
It's cures what ails you, because that's what it sounds like. But it's true, man. You can look at this literature, and this is all peer-reviewed stuff too. So we have confidence in it. Improves sleep. Reduces feelings of anxiety and depression. Gratitude correlates with better moods, less fatigue, energizes you, right? Lower inflammation, and we're going to talk about the mechanism because it may not be obvious to most people. Reduces the risk of heart attacks, okay? Rewires the brain in areas that build automaticity and empathy. Right? Makes us more empathic. Gives us a sense of reward for what we're doing. It is psychologically protective. So in adolescence, if we can help them feel feelings of gratitude, they have an inverse correlation, which means that if it appears up that there's less bullying and victimization, and it lowers suicide risk. Man, do we ever need that right now. Increases self-worth and compassion and worthiness and belonging.
And that's psychological research.
This is experimental. Most of it is experimental, which means that you take a group, 3 groups in placebo control. One gets something that looks like it, one gets something that's the opposite, and the other one gets the actual gratitude stuff. And now we're going to talk about it towards the end of the podcast, what you can do to start practicing this, because it is a practice, okay? But that is amazing. So how could it do that? Okay, so how could it do that? How could gratitude do that? So if I, instead of watching the news and going, oh, the world's going to, you know what, in a handbasket and everything's bad, it's going heck in a handbasket. Heck, Montana.
Hey, we are 6 miles south of Hell, Michigan.
I know.
That's where we're recording, 6 miles south of Hell.
So go visit. It's like a carnival town. It's kind of cool, right?
On a slow news day in Michigan, every year the Detroit news stations come out so they can throw the first snowball in hell.
It does look like a horror film set, though, because I rode my motorcycle out there, and it's like all this hell, But what else do you do with the town, right? Okay, what am I talking about now? All right. No, look, how can that happen, though? How could me taking my attention, and then instead of doing the world's bad and I'm going to fail and it's going to be awful, instead I go, okay, there's good in the world, and I'm going to find it, and I'm going to, instead of thinking about myself, because anxiety is a self-conscious emotion. If you don't know this, that when we think about ourselves, self-absorption leads to mental illnesses. Because think about the self-conscious emotions. Guilt.
Right.
Why'd I do that? Shame. That's a big one. And anxiety too. Am I safe? Am I okay? And the number one anxiety, guess what it is? Guess what we're afraid of? The number one, it's not panic disorder.
Public speaking.
Well, that's an example of what it is. It's social anxiety. We are afraid of people. We are afraid of people.
Wow.
And we don't have to get too much into that, but that's what it is. So
like, did you ever study dreams where you go to school in your underwear?
I had a dream that I was on my mini bike on North Street where I lived as a kid, flooring it in my underwear, and everybody was lying on the sides. The mini bike. I never forgot that one. Most dreams you forget. I've never. So every time I get
one to forget.
Every time I get on my motorcycle, I look down.
A mental image right now.
I check and I go, yep.
Okay.
I'm in
You're
pants.
good to go. You're
I'm in
good
pants.
to go.
I can go now.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can that happen? Well, what it does is if I start thanking the people around me and then I feel connected. It raises my sense of connection. You know, that I'm a part of this whole thing, and they're not my enemies. They're not there to judge me. They're there to help, film my podcast, or talk with me, or make my phone, or rent me the space. And then then our physiology starts to settle down, because it's not a threatening world anymore. Now it's a safe world that I belong in, and because I'm not thinking about myself. You got what they say, dance like nobody's watching.
Yeah.
Now, if you dance like people are watching and you're performing, what happens? Dance like that.
I have to dance.
When
I became a good dancer, it's when I stopped thinking about myself.
Did you say when I became a good dancer?
Yeah.
Who says you're a good dancer?
Everybody. When I became a good dancer,
Is he a good dancer?
It's because it was in college, and I realized if I just focus on the girl I was dancing with and made it all about her, then all of a sudden I was freed up.
Yeah, that's right.
And just had a great time.
Same way with if you're gonna choke on anything, free throw or guitar, it's when you start thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
Did I do this right?
Self-analysis.
Right. So that's a lot of it is getting outside of ourselves in a culture that is conditioning narcissism.
Yeah.
All the bragging.
All the selfies.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's basically bragging. Look, what are you saying with a selfie? You're basically saying,
I'm here and you're not.
Here's a good picture of me.
Yeah.
You do the duck thing,
Right,
I don't insult anyone, but I mean, there is research done where that correlates with narcissistic type thinking.
It's interesting too, and we're talking about gratitude, but one of the major virtues that is so attractional, that is so appealing, that everybody wants, they would say, would be humility.
Oh gosh, that's so good.
And C.S. Lewis has a great quote where it is this: humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less.
Yes, that's a great quote, but you're not, listen, this isn't a diversion from the topic, because humility is actually a part of it. So I'll tell you, this is how little gratitude I saw when I was a kid. A lot of complaining and stuff like that, okay? Mostly me, okay? But I was a fight fan because I was a boxer, and Tommy Hearns was big back then. He's from Detroit, so he was my idol. And they were doing the countdown to the top 10 best boxers of all time, and he did a lot, man. He won titles in all kinds of divisions and all this, and fought some great fights. And then he was ranked like number 5 or something like that. It was lower than I thought it should be, so I'm like indignant. Like, how could they? But then they were interviewing him. They go, how do you feel about being mentioned at number 5? And he was so humble and he was so sincere. He says, well, they didn't have to mention me at all. And I have never forgotten that for that long time, because I think that was the best example of something I'd gone, huh? That ain't, wow.
Because you were so incensed.
Yeah, I was like, I would have done just the opposite of that. So humility is part of that. So here's what humility is. It is a very honest appraisal of myself, okay, and complete acceptance of myself in spite of the appraisal. So because I was, when you're not well and you're, anxious and stuff like I used to be, you're really arrogant. Some of the most arrogant people, arrogance is not confidence. Yeah. Confidence is a peace feeling. Arrogance is a hypervigilant, and what are people thinking, self-conscious feeling. But I realized that I'm small. I mean, I'm small. I can only do so much. I can't solve big problems. I can't solve political problems. So you won't hear me telling you how the government should be run, because I don't know how to do that. It's too big for me.
Wow.
And I have a little bit of influence, on Broad Street, and a little bit of influence on West Lane, less on West Lane, where my kids are.
Where he lives.
But the only thing I can do is this. But it was a relief. It didn't make me feel small. It just made me feel relaxed, I guess. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
It takes it all off your shoulders.
Yeah.
If you're not
the pressure's off now.
Right.
And I can make a mistake. If Marty Fletcher makes a mistake, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised I don't make more because it's complicated out there. The world's complicated, so I don't beat myself up like that. And so it has a weird kind of paradoxical effect.
Could we put a bookmark in the fear of making mistakes for a future
Sure,
podcast?
man. Sure, we can. Yeah, because it's not the mistake though. I mean, think about it though. If I fall on the ice, no problem as long as I'm not injured. As long as I look around, nobody saw it. You know what I mean? Like if I got like mustard all over my face or something and nobody's looking, it's like, there's no problem. Right. Some of that fear of making a mistake is how will the world judge us? Mm-hmm. You know, one thing you do as a believer is you stop caring what the world thinks of you. You have one forgiving judge, and that's it. And you stop caring what other people think.
It's powerful. When it comes to gratitude, the idea that we are called to be thankful in all circumstances can be really challenging. Because there's somebody that may be listening right now that feels so low that they don't have any hope. I don't know how hope fits in with gratitude. I don't know.
Absolutely it does.
But I think that gratitude, people who live it out are just the kind of people I want around.
Live out gratitude?
It is so appealing. It draws me in. Because I think I want some of that. And they're not making it about them. They're not saying, oh, look at me, I've got all this to be thankful for. They're just genuinely thankful.
How do you know that though? I mean, I hear you and I know those people. Some of them we both know. How do you know that that's what you're seeing?
Like, this is a terrible answer. In my spirit, and you can be fooled.
That's a good answer.
But in my spirit, there's something about them that I relax around them. I'm drawn to them. I'm curious what's going on. And they can point me to experience the same gratitude for things where at first time I think, you're thankful for that? Seriously? But then the more you listen in, the more you see how they see it. It's like they draw me in. I come around to it.
That's right. We'll get to this later on because I want to hit this as a topic. But look, I have a hard time because I think about gratitude all the time. And
do you think it's rare?
Is it rare?
Do you see gratitude in folks who come to see you?
No, they're in pain. It's hard to have gratitude when you're in pain. But I'm seeing it worse, that it's in the world. The political climate, the social media, our values are so away from love and more into the conflict and things like that, that it's like, look, if I value you as a person, and I do, and you disagree with me, I'll be curious.
Yeah.
And because maybe you might know something that's the humility of that comes with gratitude. And if you can improve me, correct me, I'll thank you for it, and you have before.
You know, and it's interesting is we're talking about people have less authentic relationships in some ways because of the social media stuff. The gratitude being contagious.
Yeah.
If I'm not connecting with anybody because all I'm doing is thinking about my piece of the pie.
Yes. Well, remember it's a self-conscious. The opposite of what is the opposite of gratitude? Let's get to that because sometimes that's the best way to kind of flesh this whole thing out is find out what's the opposite of it.
Right. Entitlement.
It's entitlement.
You owe me. The world owes me.
Yeah.
Victimhood could be a part of that. Yeah. Complaining.
Yeah.
I think is a huge part.
Yeah. Again, complaining is the behavior that comes from the sense of entitlement. Because if I'm not getting what is owed to me, what I deserve, then I'll start complaining about it.
You know, M. Scott Peck, in a really, really good book called The Road Less Traveled, said the opening line is, life is difficult.
Yeah.
And he says, this is a universal truth, cuts across all humanity, because once you realize life is difficult, then you quit spending all your time complaining about how difficult your life is. You quit complaining.
Or demanding that it be otherwise.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what causes it. What causes anger and entitlement's anger. We're seeing anger right now. Man, I see it all the time. We talked about it a little bit last week. It's hard not to talk about when we talk about human beings because right now it is like we're
the go-to.
Warring, and we're getting into tribes. And all the anger is coming out, and intolerance is coming out right now. But a lot of it is, I have a goal. I have my way, if it were the Marty way, and I'm entitled to my way. And if anything gets in the way with it, I can't accept that reality of it, and I will demand, and I will, express anger on it.
There's so many barriers to gratitude, aren't there?
There can be. We're going to get to some of those too and myths about them. But let's think about this. Let me ask you this: what are we entitled to? What's owed to us? What am I entitled to?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Wait, what? Life what?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I don't, but see, I just...
That's what the founding fathers wrote.
Look, it's great to build a country on, but if I want to argue philosophically, I don't think I was entitled to life. I think I was given a gift and an opportunity to live. Wow. And I don't know why I was given that opportunity to live, so it's on me to kind of find out.
It's a great exploration.
Outside of me, right? Because what we're missing right now is, people have purpose and meaning in life, but we're going in a way that is leading to destruction. What are the values right now? We're in a spiritual battle right now. That's what I'm seeing right now. This is a spiritual problem because as the material world...
We have more than ever.
More than we need. Oh my goodness, it's far more than we need. Like, I don't want to get into... We're in a really... we could really offend a lot of people with this, but I think it's really important that we at least listen to each other and consider some of these things because something's wrong. Yeah. When the suicide rate and the self-harm rate is up like this, and I'm not saying this to kind of castigate or chastise anyone. I want people to find peace, right? But what we're aiming for isn't giving us. I watched Phelps, Michael Phelps, and he has more gold medals than anyone ever, more than some countries have himself. And what happened with him was he found out, I don't like myself. He said, I heard him say that on one talk show. I watched some interviews with him today because I'm thinking about, geez, if the material world is ever gonna, he's got the fame, he's done something nobody else has ever done. Right. But he said he just didn't like himself anymore. He looked in the mirror and said, but guess what's making him happy now? He's focused on something else, and it's not gold medals and things like that at all. What do you think he's focusing on?
Helping other people.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We're missing connection. We're getting so angry and it's dividing us, and we're missing connection. We can't be grateful for other points of view or a diversity of opinions focused on ourselves.
If we are part of some bigger thing as spiritual beings, then I would say it's no accident we find ourselves here, and that it's not a surprise to God that we are here today at a time like this, for opportunities like this, for problems like this, that God is not surprised. Yes. It's interesting talking about the world giving us everything, and yet somehow that has caused a problem. I just got back from Guatemala 2 weeks ago, and I was there for 8 days. I was there a year ago. I was in a Mayan village of a little boy that we took care of that had a giant growth on his face that blocked his eye and everything. Felix, he lived with us for 6 months. And we were putting in wood-burning stoves that used half the wood, so it was an improvement for the environment, for their lungs, for the amount of wood that they have to carry on their backs, men and women and children. And we would pray each time with these people. And all the things were made in Guatemala that we were helping them with. And the amount of time in prayer, Steve Caston and I, he's a surgeon, we were talking about how many times those that prayed in Spanish versus in the Mayan dialect they speak, we were hearing Gloria a Dios, Gloria a Dios. And in the Mayan language, it's Igual Dios, Igual Dios.
You were just hearing that in...
It means thank you, God.
But you were hearing that in the
over
like Paul said, ceaselessly, right?
And these people, they have nothing. They live in extreme poverty. Extreme poverty. Yeah. And they have nothing, and yet their prayer was so much more full of gratitude, Steve and I were saying, than ours are here.
Yeah, were they doing that outside of worship, just like in regular?
Yeah, in their houses.
Yeah. That's so good. Why, you mentioned once about the Guatemalan people that that, they have their struggles, which, look, we need a struggle.
Plenty.
The problem with some people is they can't find a struggle, right? So they have nothing to chase. Wow. But we need something important to chase. So they have their struggles, important struggles, but you said that they seem to be happier.
They have so much of what we as Americans are looking for in terms of connection, in terms of cousins, in terms of people to be there, to stop in at your house.
Yes.
To say, how's your day going?
Yes.
Person to person.
Yeah.
when you need help carrying something.
Yes.
They each have their daily load to carry, but when big things happen, the community comes out.
Yeah.
But they've availed themselves to the community. I'm sure the community sometimes drives them crazy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the amount of love and helping and here, let me make way for you, let me look out for you. You see it in the roads everywhere.
Yes.
If your car goes a little faster, the other car pulls over so you can get around it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible how much they look out for each other.
The